On the 18th of December 1991, the unrecognisable body of a 47-year-old man named John Shippey was horrifically discovered in his own car, burnt out, off a quiet country lane in rural Surrey. The flames had consumed not only the vehicle, but any semblance of his once vibrant life. This crime would soon become a perplexing puzzle for the local police, a task fraught with complications and dark secrets. As the investigation unfolded, it became evident that the police faced a formidable challenge. John had been living a life that did not add up to his modest salary as a finance director at Dove's Jaguar, a reputable car dealership in Croydon. At that point in 1991, John earned a reasonable living of £35,000 a year, which would equate back then to a comfortable living. Despite paying for child maintenance for his 12-year-old daughter after the couple had separated, John dressed in tailored suits, always appearing to be well put together. He drove luxury cars and frequented upscale restaurants. The question looming over this investigation was simple yet haunting. How was he able to afford such a lifestyle? And detectives began to untangle the web that John had woven for himself. Interviews with colleagues revealed that he had a magnetic personality, often charming clients, women and acquaintances alike.
I'd known John for nearly 8 years, ever since I'd joined the company. He was a big man. He had lots of presence. You always knew when he was in a room. If you had a problem, he'd always try to do it. His local was the Cricketers. He had used the pub for many, many years, for both business and for pleasure.
Hello, John. John was a very outgoing man.
As police delved deeper, they discovered a series of questionable transactions linked to John's finances, leading them to believe that he may be involved in something much darker. Was John trying to negotiate his way out of his debts, or was he caught up in a trap of his own making? Meanwhile, as police sifted through evidence, they uncovered John's private life, a tangled mess of relationships that added another layer to the case. Days turned into weeks with this chilling mystery hanging over Surrey. The police were determined to uncover the truth, to put the perpetrator responsible for this gruesome crime away forever. Would they discover the motive behind the murder, or would the secrets of John's life remain buried alongside his charred remains forever? The clock was ticking, and with each passing moment, the chance to solve this case slipped further and further away, leaving more questions than answers. Police reached out to the BBC, hoping to feature a reconstruction of the crime of that night on Crime Watch, hoping to jog people's memories, hoping that someone would ring in with the truth. All while police behind the scenes continued to try and solve this case. The night of Saturday the 14th of December 1991, John and one of his girlfriends went out for dinner at a local restaurant with another couple. At around 1 o'clock, the two couples left the restaurant together, then going their separate ways, with John driving his girlfriend home, the house he had helped her to buy in Kent. The couple had quite a volatile relationship, and sometime after arriving home, John decided to leave the house. It was now between 2 and 3 a.m, and he left in his blue Ford Escort. But 3 days later, his girlfriend became concerned. She said that she first received a call from Dove's Jaguar, wondering where John was, that he'd apparently missed a meeting and never turned up. She then received a phone call from one of John's friends from the Cricketers pub. John would go in daily, and apparently they were concerned as they'd not seen him for days. His girlfriend could not give them any answers. Late that night, on the 18th of December, a man driving through the village on his way back from a badminton match was following behind a blue Ford. Thought it was an Escort. He was driving along Rockshaw Road at the time, and the car seemed to have two men inside. It seemed to be veering about all over the road, so he decided to overtake. And as he looked, both men seemed to look away as if they did not want to be seen. Then another man came forward to say that at 10:50 p.m. he was driving past Rockshaw Road when he saw two cars parked at the side of the road, and he saw a man leaning into the back of one of the cars. Then apparently just down the road from Rockshaw, A couple who were watching Newsnight on the sofa heard a loud bang. They jumped up wondering what on earth it could be. Now going back to the second man, the man who had driven past and saw the two cars previously parked up next to each other. He'd been picking his wife up, and as he drove back past, he saw the flames and a car alight. These were the witness accounts for the night of the 18th of December, 1991.
At the time, that was the car that I'd just seen previously and passed about 20 minutes earlier.
Now, the company that he worked for, Jaguar, the bosses did not know that the lifestyle he was living was far from removed of the man earning a £35,000 a year wage. John lived in a house worth £250,000 in an exclusive village near Sevenoaks, Kent. He shared the property with his girlfriend Jo Watson. He also owned 2 villas in Spain and properties in his home country, a speedboat in the Mediterranean, and cars including a Porsche 911. His girlfriend Jo was far from being the only woman in his life, as he had a string of mistresses on the go at once. He was always generous, buying each of them items such as furniture and paying off their credit card bills. When not at work, John lived the high life. So where did this money come from, and what did that have to do with how he met his death? Well, John was defrauding Dove's Jaguar in a big way. He had set up 4 companies in his name, to which he transferred money from each car sale he made at Dove's Jaguar into his private accounts. In his position as finance director, it was a very easy cover-up for him to do. It was later estimated, as police looked into it, that he had stolen around £800,000 in this way from Jaguar. John Shippey had managed his business dealings very privately and extremely carefully so that no one knew what he was doing and no one had any knowledge of any strands of his life. After his death, Detective Chief Inspector John Beavis said, "I found him an enthralling man to investigate. He lived a life in compartments, and he didn't allow the others in each of the compartments to cross over. He had to know which particular part of his life he was living each day, but he kept it up. People accepted it. Some people wondered about his wealth, but John Shippey had the skill and the charisma to avoid awkward questions. But he couldn't keep it up forever, and the questions started to get very awkward indeed. By late 1991, the bosses at Dove's Jaguar had become aware that the financial situation of the company was not all it should be at that particular branch, while having absolutely no idea that their financial director was the cause of the trouble. They asked him to investigate and sort things out. In the meantime, John Shippey suddenly needed to raise a lot of cash very quickly to plug the holes in his accounts. He had to sell a number of his assets, including the home he lived with his girlfriend. Police soon became concerned that maybe this crime was related to the fraud at Jaguar. But after investigating this lead, it soon became apparent that Jaguar had absolutely no idea that John was the reason why the profits were so low. So police needed to look at other avenues. John had a string of women on the go at any one time. Despite buying a house with his most prized mistress, Jo, and spending most of his time with her, he also visited other women quite often and seemed to be able to continue this without any of them knowing about each other. The sale of the £250,000 house with Jo was something she had only just learnt about. Was this a motive in the case? Police spoke to Jo, but soon determined that she was not responsible for murdering him. She'd been annoyed at the sale of the house. She was comfortable there. She had her friends and family around her. She did not know where she was going to be living next. She was enjoying the life she had in the big house. She did not want to downgrade or downsize. Plus, the reasons that John had given her for the sale of the house did just not seem to add up. He was portraying this high-end life, so if anything, surely they would be upgrading, not downgrading. But police were now more interested in Jo's son, Carl Watson. Carl had apparently never liked John Shippey and was absolutely furious when he discovered that his mother was about to lose her beloved home, as she'd been speaking to her son and telling him all about it. While John Shippey sold it to raise sons to sort out his financial mess, Carl felt that it was up to John to sort out the mess himself and to at least give Joe half the proceeds of the house if he was going to sell it. It's uncovered that Carl had set a plan in motion to kidnap John from his home and, with the help of another man, at least scare John into doing what he felt was right by his mother. So the plan was set into motion, and John Shippey was kidnapped from his home on the morning of the 15th of December 1991, subsequently driven in his own company car to a freezing cold lock-up garage in Croydon. John's hands, feet and mouth were all tied and his eyes blindfolded while he was left to sit in the car alone in the freezing temperatures for hours, all while he wondered what on earth was going on. Some hours later, during the afternoon of that day, a man arrived at the garage. He opened the door, finding John shivering cold. He left, soon returned a short time later with a portable heater and pointed it towards the open car. He then sat on the floor of the garage and stayed there all night. At 9 a.m. the following morning, a second man arrived, Carl Watson. He shouted repeatedly at John Shippey that he should have just paid her, that he should have done the right thing, ripping off the tape over John's mouth so that he could reply. John was prepared to agree to anything at this point. He was frozen and scared, but Carl then produced a sharp-bladed instrument, plunging it into John's chest several times. John subsequently died soon after this, and 3 days later, that was when John's body was discovered in his burnt-out car, which had been torched with a gas canister packed around his body, leaving him only identifiable by his dental records and his car registration. Carl Watson, Joe's son, had never liked John Shippey and was furious when he discovered his mum was about to lose her home. He had conducted the kidnap, quite possibly with the aim of scaring John into paying Joe a fair share of the proceeds of the house. That certainly seems to be how things were proceeding, as recalled by the other man in the garage. But the anger of Carl Watson got the better of him, and the murder was the end result. The other man was Bruce Cousins, a friend of Carl Watson, who assisted Carl with the kidnap and disposing of John's body, but had no idea that Carl had murder in mind that day. Detective Chief Inspector John Beavis suspected Carl Watson from an early stage in the investigation, but they did not have enough evidence to bring him to court, which only happened 2 years later. It took a very long time for the police to be able to unravel all of John Shippey's murky business dealings, his complicated social life and finances. But the final link in the chain was the discovery of John Shippey's briefcase after a more thorough search of Carl Watson's garage. Amazingly, it was still there over a year later. Carl Watson was arrested in April 1993 and tried at the Old Bailey in December of that year. He was sentenced to life in prison.